Hey, this is Cust Corner 21.
Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. He's got the hottest takes with the highest stakes. He should be president of the United States, but it's Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. Cust Corner,
Can you believe we've got it down to 21 Cust Corners? You were a part of the first Cust Corner that we just randomly came up with one day.
I don't know how it survived this long, but I mean, he keeps having takes.
The takes are, it's a bottomless well of takes when you're dealing with one. Tim Andercust!
Tim Andercust.
That is not my name.
Oh no, it most definitely is. We know that.
It is not. Why do you have to start every show by saying, welcome to the Pat Mayo experience, and this is this corner? People know what they're watching. They know what podcast they downloaded. And if they didn't download it, they're watching on YouTube, they know what YouTube video they clicked, and they can see it on the screen. Why do we have to keep telling them that every time?
When did you become a host?
Well, he's not a host. I mean, that's generally how you intro a show. You do a bit of an intro. There's also an extra. It allows you to compartmentalize what is going to be happening in the show, the giveaways that people have. It really sets the pace right away. It's not like I spent 20 minutes on it.
No, but I would do it differently every time.
What would you do? Please walk us through.
Sometimes I would introduce it by. Sometimes I would just jump right into it.
Let's do it. You are now. Let's pretend we're at the very beginning of the show. Pat Mayo experience. Tim, go ahead.
I would just start. Boom. Category 1.
No.
Boom,
Do the fucking intro to the show.
No, the intro is there is no intro.
No, just start.
Yes.
I'm going to do the intro again. I'll do the music off the top, and then you just start. Okay.
No, I don't want to play this game anymore.
Well, you're pretty critical for a guy with no answers.
I was just asking a question.
It's almost as if you say the same thing off the top and at the back each time, because it's hard to come up with these things off the top of your head and you don't want to look foolish.
There it is. It's like when people have taglines and they say their taglines. It's like I always say, I'll see you next time at the end. I had nothing else to say. How else do you end the show?
Because you're so focused on getting to that point that there's inherently a relief when you finally get there that you don't think of a thing to say. You need a tagline. You really do.
Yeah, it's a crutch that you can go to.
Yeah.
It helps end the show very quickly. It's like introing the show. And people know that welcome to the Pat Mayo experience. I don't say I'm Pat Mayo. There's a graphic bar for that.
I'm honestly shocked. I know, like you said, we're now at 21 of these, and he apparently has a bottomless well of takes. I'm surprised his first grievance of Cust Corner 21 is how you host the show.
I know.
Didn't see that one coming.
All right, well, let's get to the first topic. Tim, you have the topic selected. I have a few here myself that I can bring by you, but what is on your mind right now? Do you have a list of them? Because I know you love lists. Or there's one thing you want to talk about right off the top?
Two things. There's two things. We'll start with the first one. So I don't know how this is, well, I do know how it's become a trend because millennials don't actually drink anymore.
You're a millennial.
There's this new trend of these things called like water bars where people are going, instead of getting a beer or wine, the menu is just a list of different waters from all over the world and different, sometimes they're different flavors. And they even have names and descriptions like you'd see of various types of wine. It's like, what is going on here? How bougie is this? That you've got people who've got to drink water only from this place or only from that place. Like regular cold bottled water is fine. I don't understand how a business like this, how are these businesses even staying in business? Who says, let's go out for a drink. I want to get, an ice cold glass of water from Nicaragua or something. I don't know where they're coming. Like, it just seems so crazy that this has become a trend.
Also, not a trend.
I was going to say, is this a trend?
It's not a trend. Tim saw an article about it, so it must be everywhere. Also, not big for millennials either, because they can't afford these like $8
glasses.
It's
designed for millennials.
You're a millennial. You don't like it.
No, I don't like it. I think it's terribly pretentious. But it is set up for millennials because millennials don't drink. Every public survey shows this.
My liver begs to differ with that
by generation, they are far more likely to consume their $17 coffees and take a selfie with it rather than get a drink.
I mean, the avocado toast you pair with the coffee, maybe $17.
Yeah.
I don't know about the coffee.
I mean, you make your avocado toast at home. It's far cheaper. Avocados are not expensive, by the way. Neither is toast.
No.
So it's something you can really piece together at home. I enjoy myself some avocado toast. I don't think I would ever purchase it outside of my house, because it would be like $8, which is just ridiculous.
Avocados are refreshing though.
Yeah, Tim
They're
loves
nice.
Tim loves an avocado toast. Don't
Oh,
you,
yeah,
Tim?
I do.
He'll yell at a clerk about the consistency and ripeness of an avocado.
Well, if you're going to advertise having ripe avocados and all your avocados are rock hard, that's false advertising.
I just, with these water bars, it's no different than like there are places, and it depends on where you are. Like the place of the article that you sent me was there's one popping up in Washington, D.C. And there's probably one in New York. There's probably one here in Toronto.
I was gonna say,
Like,
I can't think of there being one here. But
I don't think
there might be.
There could be. There's a coffee shop in Toronto that you can bring your pet cat to hang out. Like once you get to a population,
See, I think this has been disputed. I think these cafes are actually the cats are provided.
Oh, okay.
It's if you don't own a cat but want to go experience cats, you can get a cat.
Yeah, it was just like my idea for the SPCA to make more money. You have Uber dogs. Because people love puppies, but people don't want to own puppies. So you can like rent puppies for 4 hours and just play with puppies.
I'm surprised you can't already do that.
Movie Cats, because that looks great.
I don't know about that.
That is a take.
Custy Bojangles. It's gonna be great. But no, if you get to like a population density that's large enough and you have enough like affluent people around, you're bound to get like weird businesses that pop up like this. And as a one-off, they'll remain viable until like the next thing comes along. But like I said, cat bars, dog bars, water bars, like
no, but no one can tell the difference at these water bars. This is not like
okay. That is either you can't have it both ways. It's either true or not true that all water tastes the same, or there's different types of water. As you have proclaimed, you're a Dasani man, and you can tell the difference between all the different bottled waters, which is
not
just
all the different types. But I could tell you the difference between Aquafina, which is trash, and Dasani, which is quite good.
You can't.
Yes, I can.
There is a difference between Aquafina and Dasani.
Okay.
Aquafina does I only say this. Aquafina of all the major bottled waters in North America is my least favorite. I couldn't even rank the other ones for you, but there's something weird about Aquafina.
Okay, so there's a difference between Aquafina, Dasani.
But it's like the sodium levels. It's just weird stuff like that.
Okay, so what would make you think that if you had a bar that exclusively served water from around the world, different minerals, things like that, I would imagine that the waters do taste marginally different.
Well, I mean, Tim, you also said in your description of this bar that they have different flavors of water.
Well, I think there are some flavors, but I think it's mostly like, oh, here in this martini glass, I'm drinking water that came from the top of a volcano from Java. And that, how sophisticated I am.
This seems
that I'm
like the opposite of a millennial thing.
It
spits in the face of the largest millennial problem, which is none of us have any money.
It also
not having money doesn't prevent them from buying things they can't afford.
It also seems like you didn't actually look into what the actual menu or this was. You're now just making stuff up that you think is on it.
I looked at the menu, but I looked at it like a month ago and wrote down this on my list.
It also came out that Tim doesn't drink tap water.
What?
No, tap water's trash.
He brushes his teeth with bottled water.
Wait. You brush your teeth with bottled water?
Well, from a water cooler. From a water cooler. Like I fill up the glass.
But even if you don't like tap water, you're literally just spitting it out of your mouth.
I don't even want to consume it. I just find it tastes strange. I don't tap water.
Is the tap water in Toronto all that different from the tap water in Halifax?
The tap water in Halifax is in the 99th percentile of cleanest water in the world, where Tim lives. It is fantastic water. We got a lot of water out there, and there's no industry to ruin the water, so it's perfect. Also, Tim is talking about these highfalutin people going to water bars and spending money on different things from, like he said, from the top of the
No, but this is different.
I won't use tap water. Like, you're all over the place here, man.
Look,
no, I'm not. Listen, I think a lot of people use their water coolers, and most people have them to brush their teeth with and consume and
Tim,
use not just.
We ran a Twitter poll on this, and it was the lowest. Like usually, you consider 5% a win for you.
Yeah.
It was 2%.
Oof.
And I think people just do, and most of them,
I
assume,
always
were Tim's
raised
burners.
to use the water cooler water because it's fresher, it's colder. Like water can be.
That's another thing. When I'm brushing my teeth, generally speaking, I don't want cold water.
Yeah, neutral water.
Oh,
yeah,
lukewarm. Why
that really irritates your teeth, I would find, or your gums, I guess more specifically.
Warm water in general is bad to consume from taps, like because it just sits in the water heater and it's not good.
Do you know how tap water works?
Well, at least cold water flows through. far more frequently. Hot water like hangs around in the hot water tank.
So, like, how do you shower?
Well, you have to use the water, but I do make a point of keeping my mouth closed.
Do you pee in the
I don't
shower?
want water. I don't want water like dripping. I don't like the taste. It tastes bad, and I won't drink it. But that is not the same as these bougie people who are going to spend God knows how much money.
The bougie people. Not you though. Not you. You're not one of the bougie people. I can't even have tap water on my body.
I can't even shower. I hire a woman.
It's only bottled water.
To bring in a 2-4 of bottled water.
Just dump it over
top.
Put it in a super soaker and spray me with it.
If I go to a hotel, it's all bottled water when it comes to that kind of stuff. I wouldn't dream of drinking the water out of a tap at a hotel.
How many times in your life, I'm talking to Garion here, not you, have you been so hungover or still like half drunk in the middle of the night that you just stumbled over to the tap, turned it on, and put your head underneath and just started glugging water?
So many times. I was in Boston earlier this week.
Barbarism.
And it's even in hotels, it's especially sad because generally the only tap you have is in the bathroom. So just getting up so hungover at like 3:30 in the morning where you're like doing that in a bathroom sink, there's a certain level of dignity that you've just thrown out the window at that point. But still,
it's very efficient.
You have to do that. And it tastes fine because it's water.
Yeah.
And you live in a first world country. You're fine.
Yeah, when we went on my honeymoon, my wife she hadn't been to many like non-first world countries. So we're on a nice resort in Morocco. It seemed pretty legit. I was like, you can't drink the water here out of the tap. You have to drink bottled water because it's not good for you. She's like, no. I'm going to drink the tap water. She drank the tap water in Morocco. Let's just say 2 days later, our Portugal experience was not great. We stayed in the hotel room. She was like, It's like when you go to Mexico, don't drink the tap water. It could be fine, but it could be bad.
Yeah.
Where Tim lives, like I said, 99th percentile of clean water.
It's fine if you run it through a Brita. I will drink it then. But I would not drink it unless it's being run through that.
You're such a fancy man.
Look,
that's not fancy. It's very common.
I'll admit, you would not find me at a water bar. Like if we're gonna go back,
me either.
Exactly. Like if we're gonna go back to the nuts and bolts of this conversation, I agree with you in the sense that this is stupid. Again, though, I don't think it's millennial culture. It's a business.
Your grandparents.
It's a business culture where you literally just find a product that has multiple variations of that product. And like Pat said, in a city with a population over a couple million people,
there's enough people to make it a viable business.
Exactly.
There's
enough
not a chain.
People that'll be like, hey, do you want to try this water bar? Like, there's even enough people where you just say the phrase water bar and they're like, what is that? Like, I'd almost just be interested to go see how they've managed to pull that off.
It's like when you go to weddings and people have that like goofy shit that you like hire a company and they have like a photo booth and there's like an oxygen bar.
Yeah.
Hey, it's really stupid, but everyone gives it a try.
Yeah, you're like, when else would I try this in my life? I'm gonna check it out.
Again, but when we think like water bar, it's like,
why do you have to try all these new things? Like, why not just stick with what you know and what works? How about that? What a crazy idea. I don't need to experience.
Do they have that water?
The volcano.
Do they have that water from the Sahara that Bobby Boucher uses to come back alive in the fourth quarter of the Mud Bowl?
You would try that, wouldn't you?
I would definitely try that.
If that was available at my local water bar, I would try that. But it's also just a place where you can go. Some people go to Starbucks and have a coffee, and then they have a meeting, or they do work in there. I'm sure the water bar works exactly the same. Instead of going drinking and going to a pub and having your meeting there over lunch, you go to the water bar. Like, it's just a place to go. And again,
I'm not looking for a place to go.
Tim, well, that's true. The concept that he's truly against here is just leaving the house, as we know.
Yeah, he's an indoorsman. We know that. But the fact that you're in your early 30s and you think you've experienced everything good in the world is just insane.
I don't believe I said that.
Well, you said, why try anything new, was just what you said.
But why do I have to try something new?
You don't have to.
telling you have to do this.
The Gestapo isn't coming to your house and saying, Tim, you must go to water bar now, or off with you. That's not happening. You can choose to go there or not choose to go there.
I'm not compelled to have to try all these brand new things and all these wild experiences.
You don't have to.
And I just don't understand a culture that I encounter where people are like, oh, I've got to try this new water because it was flown in from Equatorial Guinea. It's like, well, that seems really strange to me. Just have a Dasani, man.
But I don't like Dasani.
Just have a Dasani, man.
But Tim doesn't even drink water. He drinks Diet Coke. How many are you up to a day now? 8?
No, well, it depends on the day.
Again, if we go by the ratio, he's at a DC per hour.
DC per hour after he has 3 coffees per hour before that when he makes the switch. You should really just stick with the coffee.
I would actually say, considering how much caffeine you ingest on a daily basis, I don't know how you sleep. So you have more hours in the day to go experience new things than the average person. Go hit up a water bar. See what it's all about.
I just find the whole concept of, again, just late, when people talk about late stage capitalism, like, unfortunately, that's what they're talking about. People just setting their money on fire.
I mean, you just said you drink 8 Diet Cokes a day. Some would
That's
argue
relatively cheap.
some would argue that that's also letting your money on fire.
No, it's not the same thing at all.
How is that not the same thing? At least one thing is good for you, and the other thing that you're doing is horrible for you.
Again, it's not horrible.
It's horrible for you.
It's diet.
They really got it with that branding.
I mean, look.
It's diet. It has to be good
a
for you.
can can't lie. Everyone knows that.
It has no calories. I don't know why I can't, like, it's good for you.
There are things that are different than calories, like sodium, for instance.
Or aspartame.
Aspartame, not great either.
You load your body up with this, it's going to affect you, Tim. I'm telling
It
you.
has no carbs in it either.
Tim's on the keto diet. His only thing he eats all day is Diet Coke.
He's basically just Phil Mickelson now.
Yeah.
But with Diet Coke.
So, anything more on this water stuff?
I think we've about it.
I think we've
exhausted this one, I think.
I think the big revelation is that he won't drink tap water or use tap water to
I
brush
just-
his teeth.
I just can't wait until we get into a situation where, like, you know those the beer bars that, like, the Peddle beer bars?
No.
Where like you and like 10 friends, I think they're really big in Detroit actually, but it's a bar, but you literally sit there and you like pedal as you're drinking, and it moves like it's out on the street. It kind of goes.
Oh
around.
yeah, I've seen those.
Oh my
Yeah.
good
I was gonna say,
God.
I
he
saw
probably
them in
hates-
Nashville.
He probably hates those so much already. Imagine when the first one comes out that's a water pedal bar.
Oh,
Just like-
I've never heard of this thing. This thing sounds terrible.
You've never heard of this thing? Oh, let's get into
No,
this.
I
then.
don't live in the elite, I don't live in the elite urbane lifestyle where that
They're
type
big in Detroit.
Yeah,
what
that
are you
type of-
talking about?
of that type of sort of like fringe behavior takes place. I'm gonna pedal around my bar. Good, my
he
gracious.
doesn't even want to sit on a patio to drink a beer.
That's true.
Imagine cracking a sweat. Oh my god.
Well, listen, you could crack right now. You could crack a sweat just being out on a patio. I mean, it's days like this that makes me just shake my head at anybody who thinks summer is better than winter. It's just crazy.
Today is my favorite day of the year so far, where we live.
It's too hot.
It's not too hot. It's the perfect.
I feel like that guy from The Simpsons. It's too hot today.
Yeah, you
Like
mean
that guy from The
Sidney
Simpsons.
Greenstreet, the guy who is funneling Krusty's money.
Yes, it's too hot today.
So it's currently 85 degrees here now, so 30 Celsius. It's perfect. It's great weather. It's very muggy,
It's muggy.
but
It is.
I'll take this every single day of the year. It'd
Yeah.
be fantastic.
Like you said, you were on a patio yesterday. I was on a patio 2 days ago. Great patio weather.
I don't want to hear about it.
You also don't want to hear about the pedal bikes. I
I
think
had to
it's a very.
I had to go on a patio to eat a meal last week, and it was
Oh,
awful.
you had to? Who forced you to do it?
But it was on a second level, so it wasn't as bad as like street level.
Oh, because the people walking by is a big thing for him.
Oh yeah, I forgot
People
about
watching him eat.
that. Yeah, he's out there peacocking, eating his fancy meal on a patio.
It was actually a pretty fancy meal, I have to say.
What did you have to eat? What was your fancy meal?
It was porchetta wrapped pork tenderloin with roasted garlic and vegetables.
Oh,
That sounds like a real meal.
it does sound like a real meal. I thought he was going to say taco stuffed with lobsters.
No, like a cherry cream sauce on top of it.
Where did you
Wow.
go? Where did you go to eat?
So I was taken to a place. I had a bet with some people last year about the Super 7 contest, and we won. And so the winners got taken out to dinner by the losers. So we went to this Italian restaurant nearby,
Oh, what was
And-
the Italian restaurant?
Il Mercato.
Oh God, that's like it's not bad. It's like the keg of Italian food.
Okay.
It's very good.
It's
but
like it's very like middle tier Italian.
Right.
Yeah,
as soon
it's
as we
good, though.
got there and they ordered their drinks, the server, she spilled a beer on me. Now I didn't. I was fine with it. I was like, that's fine, no worries, it's okay. Well, they couldn't have been more than gracious. They brought me club soda to try to clean things. There was no stain. They gave me a card, and then to say thank you, they took the appetizers and my DCs off the check to say thank you. So It was really good.
Wait,
Well, how
were you
many-
paying per DC?
Yeah,
or was
should-
it like a bottomless DC?
Yeah, it should be a bottomless DC. You order one.
I don't know. I wasn't paying. I wasn't even looking. But they said they took it off the check and the appetizer. But anyway, it was a nice meal.
So this really worked out well for the people who had to pay. They had
Yes,
to pay off their rent. They didn't have to pay any money.
Our friend Tim was quite happy.
Did they offer you to like dry clean your clothes? And you were
They
like,
gave me a card and offered it to me. Yes.
were you like, ma'am, I've never dry cleaned a thing in my life. I'm not going to start now.
That wouldn't be true. But
What do you dry clean?
suits.
How often do you wear suits?
Not often, but like if I wear one to like a wedding in the summer, if it's really hot, you sweat, you take your suit to the dry cleaner to have it dry cleaned.
The dry cleaner.
Italian.
Italian. I went to the Italian restaurant. That actually sounds like quite a good meal. I'm thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, that story took a direction that I was
I
not
wanted to
thinking
get
it
the
was.
chicken parm really badly.
That seems more.
And
More in line with
Because-
you?
Yeah.
Did they force you to try like a real meal?
they didn't force me, but someone else at the table was already getting the chicken parm, and I knew it was going to be really good. And they brought it out, and his chicken parm looked amazing.
So wait, did you not get it because you wouldn't order the same thing someone else ordered
No.
at the table?
No. I mean, listen. The chicken parm at BP is one of the best meals you can get, and so in some ways, perhaps psychologically, I was afraid.
Wait, hold on. Is BP Boston
yeah,
pizza?
100% is Boston pizza.
Yeah, it's Boston pizza. And so I guess psychologically, perhaps I was afraid that I would try this and like it better than the Boston pizza one, and I didn't want that.
Oh, question from the audience. Yes, sir.
As someone who was a cook for multiple years at Boston Pizza, I
Amazing.
will assure you that nothing at Boston Pizza is the best you can get.
Did you hear that, Tim?
I did, but like it's really good.
Well, I mean, despite being hashtag Tim Too Rich, as we found out with
I hate that one. I hate that.
his decadent lifestyle with his bottled water.
Wow, it's got that government money.
Yeah, that's true. That you really do have like a trailer park trash level like palette.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like it's really crazy. Like for what you think is like really high end good
Super cheap.
eats, it's like low class stuff.
I disagreed. I thought this stuff the other night was quite good, and I said as such.
But you
Well,
said
no.
you said you'd rather have chicken parm.
And you also said your
Well,
reason
chicken
for
parm,
not.
I wanted it, and like Brad had it, and it looked amazing.
Oh, so that makes more sense. So we have this friend Brad.
I'm aware.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You've met Brad. So when his wife is home, he eats reasonably. When his wife is not around, he only eats two things. He orders in pizza and has a spoon that he eats peanut butter out of the jar with. Those are the only two meals he consumes.
And his wife's away for 2 weeks.
So it's just like you would used to just go over to his place when his wife was away, and the peanut butter jar would be on the counter with the spoon in it just open, probably for like 3 days.
And the pizza boxes are shoved in the oven.
Yes, that's where he puts them. And then sometimes he forgets that they're in there and turns the
Yep.
oven on.
Yeah.
So this is who Tim has a palate off with. Like when he sees that guy getting it, it's like, oh, must be good. That's what goes through.
Again, I think we
Look,
skimmed over the part where the reason he didn't get it was not even the Boston pizza thing. That's important, but
Paul, does Boston pizza food come frozen or do they make it fresh?
The chicken parm, veal parm, that's all frozen.
That's all frozen?
yeah.
That makes sense.
But the fact that
So fresh.
the fact he was scared of getting this one because it might be better than the Boston pizza one, what would that change in your life, Tim? Like, would you now, in your head, have to come to this fancier restaurant, this more expensive restaurant, and only get that chicken parmesan because it unseated the Boston pizza chicken parmesan? Or
No, because I've been telling people for years that I thought the chicken parm at BP was one of the very best meals you could get. And if this was wrong, I would sort of feel like another
he
Simpsons
lied,
reference.
like you
Sort of
lied to people.
Jebediah Springfield guy realizes that it's all a fake, and he has to try to cover it up. Like it would have felt like that.
Right.
My whole
Now,
life worked.
when you get your chicken parmesan at BP, how many DCs would you say you get with that?
Yeah, I don't know. As many as come with it, I suppose.
Right.
As I'm going to drink probably one full and then a refill.
Also, who do you think is taking like your culinary advice? You're like, you got to get the chicken. Like, oh, I'm coming to the city, Tim. Like, I'm from out of town. I need to get a good meal. What should I get? You should get the chicken parm at Boston Pizza.
Have you heard of this local place, Boston Pizza?
Like, who's doing that? Who are you giving these recommendations to? That isn't like
People with
that isn't sneering at you as soon
Oh,
as
do you
you
think
say
he
it.
calls it BP because when he gives this advice to people, he's like, you got to try this thing. It's this little place I like, BP. And they're like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then they show up only to realize he was talking about a Boston pizza the entire time.
Maybe.
ESM tweeted at me the other day because I was telling them how much I love their stuff.
Who did?
Eastside Mario's, ESM. I was tweeting at them, and they tweeted back at me and told me I was a real fan.
You have more interaction.
I interact all
Twitter
the time
accounts.
with chain restaurants because when they're great, I let them know it. And the only negative one I've ever had is the time I dunked on the Wendy's character.
Look,
When they dunked on you and made a fool of you?
It's not the way I remember it.
look, I'm a man who probably not to the extent that you do. I like fast food. I like chain restaurants. I have no problem with them. But at the same time, you have to understand the differentiation between again, you just had a good meal, like a really good meal. You're telling me that didn't feel good?
Oh, that's not even a really good meal.
Exactly, but
like you can go way up on the tiers of really good meals from there. But that's a good baseline.
Yeah, it's a good baseline meal. Yeah,
and it's not like I mean, if you're talking about like Eastside Mario's is like trash. It's not good. It's like the biggest run of the mill. Like let's get it.
Well, I think it beats Olive Garden, but that's
it's like a step above. It's like fast food Italian essentially.
Yeah.
Il Mercato is like on the next step up, and then like you get your fancier ones.
Sure.
But yeah,
they did this thing I've never seen before with bread where they mixed balsamic vinegar and olive oil together in a little bowl. I have never seen this before. It was a delicious flavor combination. I couldn't believe how good it was. I was like, "What is this?"
You know where I saw that happen?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Also, I went to Italy. they were doing that over there. I mean, probably not as good as the Sparrow, but it wasn't bad.
I've never even thought of it. Never seen it before. It was like mind blowing.
See, this is why it's hard for you to weigh in on restaurants. To be perfectly honest with you, because it's very clear you've never been to a good restaurant.
I've been to places.
It doesn't seem like you have. At least no good Italian places.
Wow.
Well, this place was good.
Wow.
How?
Oh. Now I should say my girlfriend serves in an Italian restaurant, so maybe my perspective on who knows about balsamic is a little skewed.
No, this is pretty. I mean, it's not just the place where she works that does it.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying I probably hear about it a little bit more than you would in an average conversation.
Sure.
Oh my God, that. That's crazy.
You got anything more on restaurants? Any new places that you've tried recently?
No, I mean, I really haven't gone anywhere. Now that I'm on this new health kick, I've been trying to eat at home as much as possible.
The new health kick.
Can we get into the health kick?
Well, the health kick is drinking 8 Diet Cokes a day.
I thought there was maybe a little bit more.
No, it's IF, but when I'm hungry, I just crush a DC.
Yeah, why are you? Yeah, what's with all the acronyms? You have a lot of time on your hands. I don't think you need acronyms.
Anyway, that's been my approach is intermittent fasting. I've been trying anyway between 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock. And then any other time in between I'm hungry, I have a coffee or a Diet Coke.
The sad thing is
you do I mean, maybe Paul can speak to this better, but although it has 0 calories, I feel like Diet Coke would kick you out of the intermittent fasting because of all the other crap it has in it. Like the reason that black coffee doesn't, because it's essentially just water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have 1, it's probably not going to. You get 8.
Yeah, I think that will start whenever you have your first Diet Coke of the day. That's when you write down when your fasting has stopped.
Well, see, to me, I would say it would.
Well, I mean, there's a big difference to you and what reality would be with the situation. Now, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100%.
Calories are the thing that matter here.
Well, it's whatever starts burning everything in your stomach. You ingest sodium into yourself, you ingest aspartame into yourself, then your stomach's going to start working. Your digestion is going to start working. That would lead me to believe that would kick off your intermittent fasting. It would kick you out of that.
Well, call it what you want then. Whatever. If it's not technically intermittent fasting, call it what you want. This is what I'm on. And so anyway, so I haven't been out to a lot of places recently. I went out to supper there last week. I don't think I've been out anywhere since. I don't know that I have, other than to Subway once or twice.
I just think I think the saddest part is just, and look, I can't speak to diet or eating healthy, but it seems like he's so close.
You're there. You just have the wrong components.
In the sense of it's such a good thing that when I get hungry, probably out of boredom, considering what Tim does most days of the week, instead of eating something, I'll just drink. Now the answer should be I'll just drink a glass of water. You've replaced that with Diet Coke. Step back.
Diet, though.
Diet.
I'm on a diet. I drink Diet Coke.
Diet Coke
Makes a lot of logical sense.
Correlates. But you're close.
Yeah, the steps are there.
You're close.
I feel like you're just deploying what you're up to improperly. Like you are very close to this. You just need to flip the switch just like 40 degrees, and then you'll be good. Can you do that?
It would be very difficult. I sort of thought what I was doing now was working.
Have you considered going to the subway? Probably, I would say it doesn't really matter which one, but like the closest one to your house, asking to speak to the manager and telling him about your intent to go on a diet and hoping that maybe they work out some sort of Jared situation with you?
Tim is Jared?
No, thank you.
No?
Yeah, no one wants to be associated with any sort of Jared.
No, but he'd be
type.
new Jared. Everyone would like him again. Be like, hey, forget old Jared. He was weird. Here's new Jared. It's Tim.
He was more than weird.
Yeah, he was
a criminal.
Yeah, he's criminal.
So what's your next topic?
My next topic was about, so Paul knows about this because Paul and I were talking about this. Because, again, millennials think they have to live in the city. There's this new trend, particularly in San Francisco, of people spending $1,200 a month to basically buy a bunk bed in what is like a hostel in San Francisco. And it's just outrageous that, people basically have a bed and a shelf and a little TV, and this is their room. And it's like they're stacked 4 or 5, they're called pods. They're stacked 4, 5, 6 on top of each other. And it's just ludicrous. Instead of people spending $1,200 a month on somewhere respectable outside the city, you don't need to live in the city. You don't have to be there. I know you think, oh, the whole world, you can go to other places or you can go to smaller cities and find things to do. You don't have to live in San Francisco. You don't have to live in it's just foolish. And it irritates me to see people throw their money away like that.
I think you've stumbled onto a larger issue in society, but taken a very strange perspective on it. I don't want to generalize too much, but I will say big cities tend to have jobs.
And the concentration of jobs is moving more and more towards the cities, unless you work it works one of two ways. Like the smaller towns are basically just getting routed out of all, any job that you can get in a small town basically sucks now.
Yep.
There's just not the sort of industry that there once was. Everything is migrated towards the bigger cities. So people are flooding towards the bigger cities. Unless you're the type of person that can work from home. And we see a lot of that too.
Yes.
So
that's a revolution. Telework and that kind of stuff.
I agree, but not everyone can do that.
That's still selective. Not everyone can do that. Some people have to live in the city in which they work. And like Pat said,
there's a good number of people who don't need to, who are in tech jobs, who don't need to report to the office.
Yeah, but a lot of those people aren't the people. But a lot of the people that you're talking about, the people that need to be in the city for like good tech jobs, they're not the people piling into $1,200 a month bunk beds. They can afford everything.
Like, move. If that were me, you vote with your feet.
Move where? Like, even
you go to a smaller city.
Again,
there's a better cost of living.
Toronto is an extreme example of this end of the spectrum because the city itself is one of the most expensive to live in the world, and that makes every surrounding city even more expensive just through juxtaposition. But like, my parents bought a house in Scarborough, which is about an hour outside of the downtown core of Toronto. 15 years ago, a house cost $250,000. That same house earlier this year sold for $900,000. So where are you moving, Tim?
Yeah, that's been the big thing. Like, my wife and I are looking at selling our condo in the downtown area and looking to buy a house, but we can't actually sell our place. We couldn't basically even afford our place at this point. Like, just the appreciation over the 3-year periods since we bought it now takes us like all the money that we'll make on it. That's great. That's fantastic. We sell it, but we have to move away from the city in order to buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if nothing else, we just have a lateral move because the only places that are in our price range now are just our place.
Yeah.
So you can't really move up by doing that because the cost of everything is just going up and up and up. Like a normal house in the city, like a decent sized house, like not even a big house, like over 2,000 square feet, 2,000 to like 2,500 square feet is like $2.5 million. It's crazy. And people are around to pay that. And then you end up in a situation like Tim is talking about where you find these buildings. Like there's a new condo that just went up like 3 blocks from here. And it's a lot like what Tim talked about. I believe it's $1,100 a month and it's 60 square feet.
I don't know what the answer to the problem is, but the first thing we have to do is recognize that it's a problem.
I think people know that it's a problem.
And it can't go on like this forever. We have to accept this is not the new normal. This is actually a problem that needs to be resolved in some way. How that resolution comes about, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can take a bite at that apple, whether it's through technological innovation, through people, and through companies relocating out of expensive cities into cheaper. I don't know. I'm unclear how to solve this problem, but it's clear to me that it is a problem and not something that we should just shrug at and go, well, that's just the way it's going to be from now on, because that can't go on forever.
Well, you're mostly just shrugging at it and saying that's stupid. They shouldn't do that. So,
well, no, they shouldn't, but I don't know what the solution is either. I'm not pretending like I can answer that problem, but I can diagnose it.
But a lot of the people that are, living in these places, like they're looking for, like, let's say you're in finance and you want to work in San Francisco. You can't just move to Bakersfield, California and be in banking. Like, that's where you need to be. Yeah. There are certain professions you need to be in the big cities for that. And people would rather do that and pay your $1,200 a month for a shoebox or a pod than commute 2.5 hours each way. Like, that's not feasible either.
I agree. It's a very thorny problem. But what kind of life is that either? Like that, how is that fulfilling? How is that flourishing?
Well, I mean,
the end of society is the flourishing person and the flourishing family. That's the purpose of living together in community, which it is. Then that type of living is not conducive towards happiness in a meaningful sense.
Yeah, but people aren't really pigeonholing what happiness is, though. Like, I think some people have, especially nowadays, where that idea of family, like you're talking about, has become so pushed back to even like your mid to late 30s. That I think there are an ilk of people and an archetype of person in their mid to late 20s who understands the amount they're going to have to work anyway, and the amount they like to go out to water bars and such and experience the city, because that's one of the reasons you live in the city is to experience it, that they're really only getting a place to sleep.
Yeah, and I mean, these aren't the people at the end of their careers that are flourishing that are buying these places. These are the people that are starting out to be where they need to be so they can flourish, because if they're not there, they'll have no shot at it anyway.
I don't know. I feel like you get yourself into a cycle, though, when you start living in places like this.
I mean, I did. This is no different than when I moved to Toronto, and you came and visited me in my $1,000 a month shitty basement apartment that I had to commute into the city to go do things.
Sure, but that's still a step above what these people are doing.
Sure, but I also came 10 years ago.
Yeah.
If I came now, that might be the possibility for me.
Okay, like, so I'm not disagreeing with you. I get that there are reasons behind it, but it doesn't mean that we should pretend like it's okay.
No one is pretending that it's okay.
No one's okay with
legit,
the situation.
No one has solutions. Like they've tried to put in like a foreign buyer's tax that didn't do anything. Like
no.
As it turned out, like I think the idea behind it is really smart. That hey, if you are not from this country, and it was mainly because Chinese people were coming over, they bought out Vancouver and they started buying out Toronto. Like, you have to pay an extra 15%. But as it turns out, billionaires from China don't really care. They don't really care about the extra 15%. Yep. They're just trying to get their money out of China. So that's not really helping. They moved on to Montreal now. And they're just still buying it. So Montreal,
Gabe will be pumped.
I mean, listen, if you go buy like housing in Montreal right now, it's going to be worth a ton in like 5 years. If you can buy it like downtown, just throwing that there. I'm actually looking at that right now. Maybe make a move to Montreal. Not going to do that, but get me around those French people. But hey, if you had extra money to invest, which I don't, I think it'd be a smart idea. But there's no affordable housing for any of this stuff because you're not.
Oh, it's a crisis. I agree.
But even the new stuff that's going up, like there are mass condo buildings, and that's all like the downtown core of all these major cities are going to be. They're just going to look like Chinese cities. Like our friend John lives in Shenzhen,
just stacked,
which is like the 8th most populated place on earth, and it's just a bunch of 70-story condos.
Yep.
And that should make us sad.
Did you think you were going to solve affordable housing on this podcast?
No, I just wanted to sort of underline.
He just wanted to call the people who do it stupid.
Yeah.
No, it's like it is in one sense, but I understand it in another sort of thing. Like they have my sympathy because it's not conducive to human flourishing. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, but it's like people who listen. Like when I lived in New York, like you move to New York, you live in your shitty place because you're never there.
And you're in New York.
Yeah, like you're there for work because that's where the best of the best go. And you want to try to get ahead or you want to break in. You want to make a name for yourself. Depending on what business that you're in, you need to be in Manhattan or at least commute to Manhattan every single day. It's also the most fun place to be between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. too.
Yeah.
And that's a big draw for people too. And
again, I guess that depends on how you're wired. Like I'm wired in a different way, where I yearn for sort of a far quieter, far more rural.
Yes, you'd like to
know,
own your farm in a
yeah,
different
my
life.
country estate. I yearn for that far more. That to me would be far more fun.
But you can't do anything at a farm. You would just hurt yourself.
I think I'd be okay. I could be a gentleman farmer. I still do think that. I could
a
plow the
gentleman
fields
farmer.
and, you know,
You do. Sorry, you do what now?
plow the fields and
You plow the fields. This coming from the guy who can't drink tap water.
Well, out there it's a well, so you're fine.
Yeah. How about well water? You big on well water?
no, I despise well.
Well, you're not living on a farm, Tim.
We have a summer country house that is on well water, and the water is it's so minerally, and like it has that deep mineral smell to it.
What was,
I
what was that
despise
hashtag again?
Tim Too Rich.
Okay, Tim Too Rich.
Yeah.
I hate that hashtag because it's not true.
Well,
I mean,
stop wearing
no,
jaunty
I'm not
chapeaus
some-
and attending your summer home in the Hamptons.
I'm not some patrician. I'm a regular Joe.
You're the regular Joe.
I'm just a doctor with a summer home.
Yeah, I'm a doctor with a summer home, and I won't touch tap water. Yes, I'm the average man.
But like all those 27-year-olds out there working and having to live in these tiny apartments,
Squalor.
do they know they're stupid? Oh, they're just the poor? We must fix
don't-
this somehow.
I don't believe I speak like Kelsey Grammer with a mid-Atlantic accent.
You kind of do, actually.
No, I don't.
You articulate things very well.
Yeah, weird emphasis on weird syllables.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or when he says Euston, it's just very strange, considering where he's from in the world. So yeah, you have not solved affordable housing.
And I didn't
we'll get it next
pretend
time,
I was
guys.
going to. But I thought I would bring it up as a public interest story.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very big thing. Like I said, I'm in the market to try to buy a house, and the more I try to buy a house, the more I realize I can't afford a house.
Nope.
Someone wants to like give me $1 million, that'd be awesome. Question from the audience. Yes, sir.
I think the place that Tim's talking about is set up for like new people in town. So you have a place downtown until you sort yourself out. It's only like month to month.
See, that would make a lot of
That
sense.
makes a lot
Did
of
you hear
sense.
that, Tim?
Yes, I heard that.
So I think that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like a hostel in a way, but for people getting to town and then trying to figure out. Like I remember when I moved back, luckily I had friends in town that I could crash with for a month before I found myself an apartment, got myself furniture,
Yeah.
got myself like I couldn't just move. It's not like I moved back and I had my place. I'm not that organized.
Well, if you needed your furniture back, you could have just asked.
I mean, you were making good use of it,
That's true.
but
Do you still have that TV that you and Eric dropped?
no, I think we threw that out.
Yeah, that didn't make it to our place.
That was so heavy.
yeah.
That was like the.
All those old TVs used to be heavy.
Yeah, but that was the like that was an HD TV, but it's before like the last of the non-flat screen ones. It was so heavy.
Yeah, it was big.
No wonder we dropped it on the way in, and it had that weird color bar
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Yeah.
Still worked.
Very green, if I remember right.
Yeah,
It
well,
was green.
we had like 7 screens set up. At
That was the one the
point.
Dolphins game always got put on.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. When
I
you have
know.
7 games, you
I
need
went to
7
visit
screens.
them here for March Madness. We had the worst game on that screen.
That's fair.
Damn, housing crisis remains unsolved after our discussion. I really thought we were gonna get to the bottom of it.
Damn. So close.
Do you have any ideas, Tim, besides building affordable housing? The problem is that unless it's government-owned community housing, that whoever owns it is just going to charge way more.
There's no way.
That's the thing. There's still people lined up to buy these places at the stupid cost. That why would anyone ever lower the price?
No, I agree, and I don't want the prices to be fixed either. Like,
But that's
That's
that's the only way to do it. And then we're even seeing it right now. Like gentrification is just wiping these places out. And they're moving people further and further and further away from downtown. I wonder how people like if you're not like a banker or a downtown lawyer or someone who trades on the stock market and like you just work a regular job that pays like let's say you make minimum wage, like someone has to work at Starbucks, that kind of thing. And there's tons of those around. There's fast food places everywhere. I don't know where those people can live in the city. I really don't. And who would commute to go do that job?
Yeah, because the East End is incredibly gentrified over the last 2-3 years. Parkdale was one of those places, and that's a
on
big point of contention.
And I realize that we're talking about this specific to like what we know in the city we live in. I feel like it kind of works the same in any
Yeah,
big
I
city
would
at this
assume
point.
it's
just
pretty-
replace the name of formerly bad area, now good area.
Yeah, there's certainly templates for this for your Chicago's and New York's and San Francisco's. I think it's probably pretty similar.
Yeah. I honestly don't know what to do. They tried.
No, but I have great empathy for the people that have to go through this because, and I would.
Well, nice of you to come down from your ivory tower to tell people
my
you're
advice
sorry.
is always like, if you don't need to be in a big city, don't be in there. Even if you want to be there, if you don't need to be there, go somewhere else.
Yeah, but also part of it too is a lifestyle choice. You don't like big cities. A lot of people do like big cities, and that there is.
I don't.
Yeah, but there is cachet. If you're someone who enjoys, the day-to-day like urban life, then you want to live in a city.
Again, like I think the
hostel, you don't get like where we live versus where you live. You don't get the same sort of city experience. You just don't.
Yeah. I think the hostel thing is a really apt comparison. And I know it's easy because I think, like Paul said, this is like a converted hostel. But I know whenever I travel anywhere, specifically with my girlfriend, it's always a matter of, do we really need an expensive hotel? Because we're only going to be there for 2 days. We're only sleeping in this hotel room.
I really only like staying in hotels. I don't like staying.
That's fine.
Shocker! Country estate Tim Too Rich only likes hotels.
That's a fine take to have, but
I mean, Airbnb has really helped the market.
Yeah, Airbnb is incredibly
Airbnb
helpful.
is one of the primary causes of some of the housing crisis.
Agreed.
But sure.
But does that mean now? I mean, we all have to make a pact that we're not going to use it. But if it's available and it's there anyway, why wouldn't I use it?
Again, that's what makes the issue that much more thorny. The market demands space for people to come and visit, but yet it's taking up valuable space people need for housing. It's very difficult. It might just be there isn't a solution to the problem.
I don't think anyone's happy about it, but again, I think if you want to live in the city, if that's a choice you're making as a lifestyle, I think it's something at this point you just accept. I think you go into it knowing the exact situation you're walking into, and it's of course not ideal. But I think, like Pat said, I think there's just a certain personality of person who is like, I need to live in a city. Whatever means I have to make that work with is how it's going to work.
Yeah, and like for our experience as Canadians moving to Toronto, I guess Vancouver would kind of work the same way depending on the industry that you're in. Like if you want to be at the top of your field, you need to live in these places because that's where the top. It'd be like, you know what? I am the best. I am a Wall Street trader. I am the best at finance in the world. I'm moving to Little Rock, Arkansas. Like, that doesn't correlate. Like, you have to live in a certain place.
If you one of the world's biggest companies was started in and still is headquartered in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Sure, but if you're a Wall Street trader, you can't move there. There's no stock market.
Or you just keep trading and buying the stock of that one company.
Yeah, like there are certain professions that if you want to make the most and get the most notoriety and move up to the very top of your field, you need to be in the places where all those people are so you can be better than them.
I guess if your only limiting principle is ambition and trying to make more, I guess, sure. I guess, again, I don't think that way.
But you just said people to flourish. Like some people value
flourishing means more than just financial wealth. I mean,
but that isn't just that isn't just financial wealth. Some people want to be the best at what they do, and that's what the money is.
No one will ever be the best at what they do. That's an unfulfilling.
Well, some people would like to try to be.
If your life goal is to be the very best at something, you're going to live a very unfulfilled life because there is always a bigger fish.
Yeah, but some people would say that's a good way to live life, where you're never satisfied and you're always striving for something.
Or a hamster on a wheel, becoming more and more immiserated.
Again, this is all just perception of life's greatest questions.
Yeah.
Which, again, we're probably not going to parse through.
I don't know, maybe we can get it solved here if we keep talking this out. But like flourishing, like, are you flourishing, Tim?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no.
Okay. I don't feel like I am. I'm grinding.
In some ways you are. In some ways you aren't.
I'm grinding to try to get to the other side here. When I can move to Cayman Islands and just live out the rest of my life.
The Caymans.
Yeah, just anywhere hot and cheap. Just
hot banking industry there.
Yeah, the crooked industry. That's where you really want to be. But yeah, no, like there are some people that value professional success. They don't want to have families. They don't care that this is what they're into, and you need to be in certain places to do that. So you have to suck it up if that's what you want to go with, and then you try to climb up the ladder there. And there are certain places where you can do that, and other places where you can't. I do think that eventually part of the housing crisis will be solved by telecommunication. That if I can do the show and you don't physically need to, let's say I picked up and moved my production tomorrow to Halifax. So I went and moved back home. Doesn't mean you couldn't still be on the show.
No, exactly.
You could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So stuff like
this all the time.
Yeah, but like media-wise, I think we could do that. But the media industry is a lot smaller than people think. Although it's expanding, but it's just people shooting stuff from their houses. But there are certain industries that if you want to like go up the ladder and make the most money and be the most successful, you have to be in the biggest places.
Tim is unimpressed.
Yeah, Tim.
Well, no, I don't dispute what he's saying.
All right. More. Do you have more topics? 'Cause I have one for you.
So why don't you roll into one?
All right. This one's going to keep on the trend of millennial culture. Not really me that brings this up all that often, but the feeling of retro is going to be going like retro. When does it stop? When we think of things as retro, like is it,
so we're trying to figure out what the time parameter, something that should be considered retro is.
Like I feel like the cutoff for retro is going to be like 2005. Anything after 2005, there's not going to be 20 years from now being like, oh man. Like you have Stranger Things and like the 80s are really huge.
So you mean even just the cultural perception of retro as a viable thing?
Collective memory of a population works for these certain retro things
because we had sort of a monoculture.
We all remember it.
Right.
But now it's stopped.
That's true.
That people aren't going to look back. Like, let's say it's 2019 now. In 2039, are we going to have some sort of like retro TV show or retro renaissance of things that happened this year?
Well, there just won't be anything that's engraved enough in the pop culture. Like you just can't spoof things anymore. You can't reference things.
Like, I mean, it's a good thing that the Zuckers made Airplane in the early 80s because they wouldn't have a career now. Or the Wayans brothers.
Well, even think like how differently...
But does that mean we recycle 80s stuff, recycle 90s stuff? Or am I just way off base on this? And as I'm not actively participating in the popular culture because I'm older now, that I'm just now an old person who doesn't get it.
No,
you're a young man. I
mean, I'm not that young, but I think you're right. I think I don't even know if it's a problem necessarily that we're going to run into, but like I think even the fact that Stranger Things is such an apt and...
Also, hot take, Stranger Things is the Big Bang Theory with better production value.
I can see that.
Like, it's not good. It's fine.
It's fine. I like it.
It's fine. But people are like, Stranger Things is like the greatest show of all
time. It's not. It's not a well-written show.
No, it's also like not that good.
It's pulpy. It's fine.
But it's pure nostalgia.
Exactly. But like you said, it has these reference points where it references points of the culture, and I wasn't even alive, but that I still understand. Like when you just see a character who's clearly the Terminator, but you don't have those movies anymore. You don't have these touchstone cultural events. So I'm with you. I think this concept probably dies out relatively soon.
No, I think someone living in 1978 would have said this very same thing about the previous 4 years of their life. I think it was ever thus. I think we have just as much or just as little of a monoculture as they did in a lot of ways.
How though?
Because social media and because media in general can control
everything. Goes so fast.
1976. You did not read a newspaper from another city. You probably didn't know anybody from another city. The idea of like there being a national story was very few and far between. The reason like Watergate or the moon landing were big stories is because they didn't happen very often.
Yeah,
now,
but that's the whole point.
But we have so many of them.
Now we participate in everything.
Yeah, that's the
problem.
And it's not that we participate in everything. The three of us generally participate in the same things.
Yeah.
So to us, it seems like something is huge. But 99% of other people aren't engaging with what we're looking at. They're engaging in their own thing. And it's so chopped up and so niche now that's the problem.
Content is, but the mediums have never been more connected. Everybody has
it's
all
a double-edged sword.
Also, what you see on your Facebook feed and your Twitter feed is completely different than what I see, and we have similar interests.
That's correct, but we all have Facebook. That's correct, but we all have Twitter, right? I mean, like, what?
But there's too much. You're overstuffing something that's already full. It's a saturated market, Tim. Like, there's
the Social Network. The movie is a type of nostalgia.
But
that's
even
the sort of thing.
But even that they made that movie, what, 10 years after? Like you're seeing this a lot more now too. Like these movies and films that are based on true stories and events, they're getting pushed through production companies so quickly because they understand that if they don't do this fast, if they don't do this now, this touchstone cultural event won't be a touchstone cultural event anymore. Like
and
there's too much stuff.
Tim is right about Facebook. A lot of people have gotten rid of Facebook.
Yes.
But Facebook, by and large, especially from like old people to, I mean, it's more and more younger people who don't have Facebook now, but like more older people have it than any other social media. But most people do not have Twitter.
No.
Like at all. Most people are not aware of what goes on.
I would say Instagram is probably
Instagram has more users, especially in North America, than Twitter. Like Twitter's not that. Twitter is popular among a niche set of people.
Yep.
Basically media people.
Journalists.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they drive the wheels.
But they don't, because people don't have Twitter to pay attention to it. Like, you pay attention to it, and that's great. But it's even like when you look at ratings for, like, there's the only monoculture piece in at least North America that we've had over the past 5 years is Trump. That's it.
Yeah,
he is monocultural.
But even
that's
way too
superhero
fast.
Movies. Marvel is monoculture.
Yes, it
What
is.
is Marvel but monoculture?
Sure, it is. But again, you've got.
But can
Marvel,
you have nostalgia
Marvel
for something that's already 100 years old?
That's the thing.
You
It's
don't think
one.
20 years from now, people will have nostalgia for the Avengers. I think
But those
No, they will just make
stories-
new Avengers movies.
But like Pat is saying, not only are those stories already 60 years old, so technically they're already a retro of themselves, but it took where let's say the first Superman movie. Everyone kind of knows, like a certain generation, everyone saw that Superman movie. There was one of them for a while. I know they ended up making 4, but no one really references maybe outside the first 2, unless you're Richard Pryor.
I'm going to say, outside of Office Space, no one really references Superman 3.
Exactly. But Marvel, it took them 24 movies to tell a story. That, again, is a microcosm of the exact thing we're talking about. There's just so many avenues to making content. Even Trump, like you said, the only monoculture thing we have, it's amazing to even view Trump just through, like, the perspective of, like, comedians. Like, you see comedians come out with a Netflix special where they have Trump jokes, and you can pinpoint the week they did that because their jokes are already incredibly stale because there's 17 new Trump stories every single day. Like,
yeah, it's not,
aside from the fact that some people think he's great or some people think he's an idiot, I don't know how many touchstone Trump moments there are because there's just too many. Remember when he touched that orb?
Yeah,
remember how big that was?
The orb is still the single best Trump moment.
But like,
and everything changed at that moment.
Fair. But like, I think you could honestly talk to somebody about Trump for 17 hours and the orb might not even come up. Like, there's nothing about society today that moves slow enough to have it be ingested the way things were ingested.
I remember when
his
fake diet came out, Morency and Cam did an entire show on what was on that diet list.
Was Diet Coke on it? That's how you knew he was on a diet?
Yeah, very funny.
But it was, though, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
The other thing, too, is that we don't have, and like when you chop it up, I mean, people, this isn't a new thought with, podcasts becoming a medium, and there's 38 million of them. There's 400 channels. There's just different ways that people consume media. You can consume whatever you want, on demand, whenever you want it.
Yep.
That I even look at something like, I'm 8 years to 9 years older than you? 7 years, maybe?
7 years, I think.
And I'm older than Tim. But the three of us, because we all grew up with The Simpsons, understood cultural touchpoints from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. We learned about old pop culture through that stuff.
Yep.
And we became made aware of it. And then when you would see something like, I probably saw more scenes of The Godfather through The Simpsons before I actually saw The Godfather.
I would agree.
I saw most of Citizen Kane by watching The Simpsons before I actually saw Citizen Kane.
Yep.
That there's nothing like that anymore that teaches people.
Part of it too is we didn't grow up with the internet, so we used to watch a lot of old reruns of old television. Like I have seen every episode of Columbo and of Murder, She Wrote, and have you
ever had an Angela Lansbury beat?
No, but I have watched all of those, and we all did. We all watched Gilligan's Island, and we all watched. You're
generalizing this way too much.
You're generalizing this as someone who people who are 10 to 15 years older than you, Tim. That is the experience that you somehow had.
Well, this is the shows I watched growing up. We always watched retro shows.
Again, so Tim, you're 32, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I am 5 years younger than you. And we're obviously very different people. That is the whole point of this show. But I will say, I can remember the first time where it really became easy for me to go to a computer and find a website to illegally stream shows. I think I was like 16. So
I still don't know how to do that.
For most of my life, where I've actively consumed my own content, I've been able to do that. While I'm not suggesting that all 32-year-olds have watched all of Gilligan's Island or Columbo, that again speaks to the point of how quickly this all moves. 5 years of separation between when we grew up and I was essentially able to stream things my entire adult life.
So I would say that what Tim is talking about, whether it be like Hogan's Heroes and these shows from the 60s and 70s, MASH, that kind of thing, I can tell you things about them without ever having seen them.
Sure.
And I think that's more the point that I was trying to get at. That you
Yes.
learned about culture from other culture that had previously come along.
Yes, and there isn't that show that does that and assists in
But
that way.
it doesn't even need to be a show. It could be anything. But where nothing is as monoculture as that. Like growing up every single day, how many, and for all three of us, how many times a day was Seinfeld, The Simpsons, Fresh Prince for that matter, just for our actual age range? How many
Yeah.
times a day were these shows on? Like 8?
You could catch The
Oh, at least.
Simpsons
And I would consume nearly all of them. I watched
pretty
a lot
much
of
any
television
hour
growing up.
if you had basic cable.
Yeah. And like you only needed 20 channels, and these were
Yeah.
the same shows. Like think about how many times anyone who had TBS growing up for like 15 years, how many times have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
Deep
Oh,
Deep Blue
20,
Sea.
25, 30,
Yeah.
35.
Like that just doesn't happen
No.
now. So back to my original point of where does like retro does retro continue to be a thing? Does it become more prevalent because people in their 40s and 50s and 60s as we get older have no concept of anything that happened after 2005, but there will be nothing after 2005 that even this new generation grows up that they can point back to, that they want to watch something like a Stranger Things? So will content always technically be geared towards people of our age at minimum and older?
Well, I think the one thing to think about too is just level of access to this stuff. Like you could make the argument that the reason people like retro things is because there was a time when
There was a time.
if you weren't watching the thing you wanted to watch, you didn't have access to that thing ever again.
Yeah.
Or you didn't know when it was coming back. So if you grew
Well, I
up,
remember having to go through various hoops to figure out how to tape something on my VCR.
Sure.
And then try to guess how long I think this football game is going to run so that I can record it because or how long this special episode of a show is going to run. And if I missed it, I'm done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And at Tim's house, when he hooked in his VCR, it was always 12 o'clock.
always 12 o'clock, except for the half seconds where it wasn't time at all.
Yeah.
Then it was 12 o'clock
I got
again.
Really, it actually became very embittered when I got rid of VCRs because I ended up becoming really, really, really good at programming it.
So
like
good,
taking
so good at
one-
VCRs.
So, I'm the best at VCR. Let me tell you, I'm the greatest. VCRs, I'm the
have it
best.
set up that I could have multiple VCRs running at once so I could tape things off.
Yeah, you know what you
file.
do now? You press one button on your remote to record something.
So again,
That's why I was so annoyed. It was like it was a guild system that I had like mastered, and all of a sudden it just was useless. All of a sudden,
I had to learn VCRs. Everyone should have to learn
yeah,
VCRs.
Tim, the generation before Tim, they had to walk uphill both ways in the snow. Tim knew how to use 2 VCRs at the same time.
But I think my point being is just I think having access to the things you grew up with, like the next generation will, it's not going to make you pine for those things in the same way because they'll always be at your fingertips. So you won't need something to come along that references these things because why would I watch something that's a watered down reference to these things when I could just watch the thing itself?
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think the concept of retro might die out pretty soon.
Or it just becomes, and we're seeing this in TV, that they brought back Will and Grace. And it like does well.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true too.
I think they're bringing back Frasier, which I'm fired up about. I love
Are they
Frasier.
actually bringing back Frasier?
Apparently they are.
Huh.
Kelsey Grammer was spotted with a Frasier script.
Oh.
See, it gets me all fired up. Love Frasier. Other people hate Frasier, but maybe it'll be an age thing. Maybe I have maybe I'm wrong on like what the year is. That's like 2005 to 2008 is basically when people got not just dial-up internet, but like good internet.
Yeah.
And knew how to use the
Well,
internet.
again, that's the exact span I'm talking about where it's like, I can stream something if I want to stream it.
Yeah, like, and it's weird, like, because we talk about like millennials and Generation X and anything. There is and I mean, everyone wants to feel like, oh, I'm not a millennial, I'm a part of this range or this range. But I do think that there is a distinct period, and like maybe being like, I would say ages 32, 33, 34, 35, 36 right now, depending where on that spectrum that you fall, that there's a weird in-between generation that didn't grow up with the internet, yet got access to the internet as basically they became adults. So they know, like, I know how to use the internet. But when I was in high school, the level of internet that was going around is I had dial-up, I was using Napster,
Yep.
I could burn CDs, and this was in like 11th and 12th grade. But I also needed that like phone thing that would like if someone was calling our house, that it would pop up that someone was calling like with a screen ID, and I could disconnect from the internet to pick up the phone. And like I was 16, 17, 18 at that time. And then by the time I got to college, internet was a little bit better. By the time I left college, it's the internet that we know now.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Remember, we used to
interesting.
have about minutes for how many minutes of internet you could use a month.
That was even before. That was like AOL before that, though. That was like very first gen internet.
But even like, so
like
that
mass internet.
that span of time where I'm talking about, you know, finding shows and streaming them, I can specifically remember I think I was binging like the first season of Dexter or something. I'd been behind on it, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this show.
Imagine how sad you got when you got to the end.
Yeah, I found an illegal stream. This is gonna be great. This was right around the time they started where internet wasn't just free anymore. And or it wasn't like you just paid internet and you got as much internet as you wanted. This was right when they started implementing
the caps on internet.
And I remember my mom getting the bill for the internet, and it was like $200 because I had just been streaming episodes of television to my heart's desire. And it's like, yeah, there's weird moments where everything shifts. And for the 25, 26, 27, 28, 29-year-olds of the millennial culture, that the internet is just phones basically for us. Like I didn't have my first cell phone that had internet capabilities until the 12th grade. And then by the time I was in college, it was just like, oh yeah, everyone has phones and they can do everything.
Oh, Tim, remember when I got my first smartphone when we went to Bonnaroo?
You were so proud of that piece of junk.
It was so terrible. That was in 2009. I got my
not as good as our friends Palm Pilot. Remember that?
Oh yeah, the Palm Pilot. He carried around that stupid stick with him all the time.
Well, I remember being at CSM and thinking I needed to get a BlackBerry if I wanted to be a journalist. Like, this is how far we've come.
Yeah, like when did you get your iPhone? Because you were one of the first people I knew who had an iPhone, Tim. Actually, Artie was. When I lived with Artie.
Artie. Was it to keep track of the Lakers scores?
Of course, you should see how fired up he is about the Lakers.
Back when Artie used to blog.
Yeah, he had the Artie blog, Artie's Lakers blog. And all it would just say is the Lakers are the best. Kobe above everything. And that David West is the best center in the West. Although he's not a center, but he just liked how the words moved together.
I think I got my iPhone in 09. Late 09.
Yeah, so that's when I moved in with him. When I moved up to Calgary to live with him, he had like the first like iPhone 3, I think it was.
Right.
And like I remember using the internet to watch like football, like tracking like my fantasy football scores on Yahoo. And be like, this is like the fucking future, right?
Yeah.
And now everyone's just on their phones.
I remember how excited I was when I went from a flip phone to a QWERTY phone. I thought QWERTY phones were like, oh, the keyboard's right here, man. It's like a tiny little keyboard. This is amazing.
But we had a cell phone at home. Like we had a brick one for a while. And then the first one that I got was my first year of college. It was a peanut phone.
I don't even know what that is.
It looked like
you don't know what a peanut phone is? Like they don't flip.
Yeah. The little like Nokia brick kind of thing.
Yeah. But it wasn't. Maybe it was Nokia. You could play Snake on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I really remember.
Yeah. No, because my mom was... she was the executive assistant of some bigwig at the Bank of Montreal.
Was it Tim?
Yeah, it was Tim.
Look at these poors coming in to look at their loans.
She had one of those Nokia brick phones, but you couldn't take off the plastic cover. Like that was part of it, because it couldn't get wet or it would just instantly break.
Yeah, I remember when razors were all the rage. People loved a razor.
Yeah, that was like 2008, I feel like.
Yeah, that was right before
they were only all the rage for like 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Tim's timeline on stuff like this, but like before iPhones and Blackberries like took over for a while.
No, razors were big.
Razors were like the thing to have. Just flip them like this and start going. But again, like maybe I'm just way off base. Are people going to have this kind of conversation knowing exactly what we're talking about? Now, maybe types of cell phones are one thing. Those things will always remain. Like you might have an Android. I have an iPhone. Paul has a Huawei. However you say that.
Huawei?
A Huawei.
Huawei.
It starts with an H. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. He has one of those. Like, does it get to the point where 10 years from now there are 38 different types of cell phones you can buy?
I think these moments of like, hey, do you remember life before? Remember life when you had to talk to someone over video chat and you couldn't just bring up a hologram of them on your hand? Like that stuff will still happen.
You have to understand, in 1997 or 8, the idea of like FaceTime was so impossible to imagine.
Yeah, it was on the Jetsons. That was a big thing on the Jetsons.
It was a big thing on like Star Trek: The Next Generation too. It'd be like, FaceTime, here we go.
Oh.
It was inconceivable, and now it's just common.
It was Wallace Scott?
Yeah, I can actually, between Paul and I, we could figure out, like, if all of our cameras went down, all the lights went down, I could have the three of us and off his phone and with our phones filming like this, and we could do a video show
Yeah.
in 4 separate locations across the world and just do it like that. And it wouldn't be too difficult.
Remember, like the first time I figured out what a hotspot was, I was like, "What? This is crazy. How can you do this
I
stuff?"
still don't know what that is.
You don't know how to use the hotspot on your phone?
No.
Oh, man. Poor Tim.
It's a sad, sad life.
Do we got time for one more of these, or are we done here? Oh, Tim, I want to talk to you. How do you feel about breakdancing in the Olympics?
This is good. We needed to finish on a funny note.
I think it's great. Breakdancing's hard. It's
Yeah?
very athletic and it's hard.
Now,
Put it this way,
do
Tim.
you provide your own boxes, or does the IOC provide boxes?
I think that the IOC probably provides the boxes because they need to be like the same for everyone
Right,
to do their
right.
breaking
Uniform
on. But I
boxes.
think that you provide tracksuits and the crew that's like that stands around
Now,
in your circle.
So does your crew also get to walk with you through the opening ceremony? Do they get to stay in Olympic Village?
I would think so. I think they
Okay.
also get a medal. Like if a horse gets a medal or the jockey gets a medal and like dressage, like why can't your beatbox crew get a medal too?
Does the horse get a medal?
I don't know. Probably.
Tim, does the horse get a medal?
No, they get laurels. They don't get medals.
Ah.
The trainer or the
Do you,
rider.
do you
or the
think they
jockey.
should get medals?
I don't know if they should get medals, but they're definitely athletes. I would like to see them in the Parade of Nations.
There's gonna be horse crap everywhere. It's not the start of the Lion King.
Which apparently is flopping.
Is it flood? Did it not make any money?
Well, I don't know if it made any money, but now all the reviews I've read have been
The
bad, so I
reception
don't-
hasn't been great.
Yeah, but Tim actually changed what he had said. 'Cause
Yeah.
he said the Lion King is going to be a complete disaster. And he was like, well, it's going to make like $1 billion. He's like, well, it's not about the money it makes, it's about the critical reception. It's like, that's not ever
No,
the argument that you make.
Nope. Yeah, it'll still make $1 billion.
Yeah, so he had to change his argument halfway through when he knew he was going to be wrong. So now he's stuck on it.
I'm trying to figure out what its cinema score is.
Does cinema score matter?
It's got like a 60 on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it's not even like people are saying it's the worst movie ever. They're basically just saying you didn't have to redo this the way you redid it. You
Yeah.
should have just left it alone.
But
which isn't even a bad
but
review
hey,
necessarily.
you made a few $1 billion along the
yeah,
way.
sure. It's about the friends and the billions you
But
made
are
along
you
the way.
are you for or against breakdancing in the Olympics?
Against.
Why?
I got nothing against breakdancing. I think it's really hard. I think it's hard work, but I don't think it needs to be in the Olympics.
Why not?
I think there are too many things in the Summer Olympics. I don't think that that kayaking event where they go down a man-made water track should be
That's
in
so
the
fun to
Olympics.
watch, though.
Yeah, it's one of the that's one of the
It's one of the few that is fun to
well,
watch.
that's the whole thing. All the new sports that have been introduced to the Olympics are like the only thing that people care about watching on TV because they're
I've
the
said
only
this
decent ones.
time and time again. It's so obvious that the biggest flaw with the Summer Olympics, and I know they're the more watched of the two Olympics. I find people hurtling themselves down ice slopes at hundreds of miles per hour a lot more entertaining than the Summer Olympics, personally.
Oh, you see, you'd rather watch the luge than watch someone run a marathon?
Yeah. But hey, Summer Olympics get better ratings for whatever reason.
Well, no, Summer Olympics get better ratings worldwide, especially because
There's just more countries
yeah,
involved.
there's just more countries
Sure.
involved in the Summer Olympics.
But the biggest
and there's,
issue
and there's more sports.
with the Summer Olympics is your marquee event, at least from just a ratings
Last
perspective.
10 seconds?
Last 10 seconds. Like, that's a problem. That's a real big issue. So yeah, let's do breakdancing competitions. That sounds great.
Yeah, I'll tune in. I'm far more likely to tune into that than anything that has to do with horses in the Olympics, which is ludicrous.
What if the horses
No,
breakdance?
I'm
horse breakdancing, I'm in.
dressage is very impressive, and
Yeah,
has a
dressage
long-
is the original horse breakdancing, Pat.
But you know, I've long thought that the Olympics should try as much as possible to be just about swimming and running and horses and athletic.
Really had to jam that one in
Running,
there.
swimming, and horses. What I think of when I think about the Olympics.
Well, not just running, but like athletics, like in terms of like the hammer toss.
Just remember
and
the 3 R's: reading, writing, horses.
Well, eventually, like the Olympics is having such problems because every city that hosts it like goes into like a recession.
Yeah, and no one wants to. Yeah,
No one wants to host it anymore, and it's becoming less and less popular in terms of actually viewing it. That you need to spice it up a bit, or it's going to go away. It's just not going to be viable. It's still a
No,
commodity.
I don't want to change it all. I want it to stay exactly as it is. It's timeless.
You sound like a parody. You realize that, right? Like that's the exact thing like a Tim drawstring toy would say. Like, I don't want to change anything. I want everything to stay the exact way it is. And you'd be like, I've never said that. Like, you just said that.
The Olympics are, to me, a pretty timeless
Yeah,
thing.
but the thing is, their time might be up, Tim, because they might have to go away because they're not viable.
No. Listen, Tokyo, Paris, and Los Angeles are lined up to host the next 3 Olympics.
Sure.
3 world-class cities.
But don't
Yeah,
you
but
think
what-
there's
what-
an issue that there's only 3 cities that already have the facilities available to them, and they're the only places that are willing to host this thing? Isn't that a red flag for you?
And what happens if it doesn't go well and these cities lose billions and billions of dollars? Then no one wants to host it. What do you do
They're
then?
all- because the Olympics are the biggest event in the world, there will always be a marketplace for them. They just will.
I don't know if they are.
I mean, yeah, sports come in and sports come out when we can make some changes on the margins. So, like, breakdance, whatever. Like, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't have included it, but if they did, so be it. I mean, there's lots of sports I'd like to throw out of the Olympics. I actually think that we should try to pare down what we've got in the Olympics, and there's too much there as it is.
That might
I think
be
we should
one way to make
focus
it more
on
viable.
essentials.
Yeah, less.
I like to focus
less
on the
facilities.
essentials. What makes the Olympics great is amateur sports that are based on athleticism and fair play, swifter, higher, stronger, that type of stuff. That's what made the Olympics so popular.
But
to
No,
begin
no.
with.
I completely disagree with
It's
that.
just no one had an imagination when they were coming up with sports. They were like, someone just looked at all these things, was like, hey, you know how they've one sport is about throwing something really far, and one sport is about running really fast, and one sport is about catching things. What if we just combined all those traits and made them into one game called like football or baseball or basketball?
But also, I mean, this can also go back to the monoculture thing too. Like the Olympics is monoculture, or at least it was, and that seems to be deteriorating year after year after year. But it's not the athleticism that people love so much. It's the fact that every country in the world gets together to compete. Like there's a
that's really
national
cool.
investment. No one really gives a shit about the high jump.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, no, they don't.
I don't think
They
there's many high jump purists.
Do you know why that like high jump isn't on TV outside of the Olympics? Because no one gives a shit.
No, I know, but I like to watch.
No,
the high
so
jump.
you know or you don't know. Which side is it?
I don't think you're wrong, but I think people like the Olympics, so they like the things in the Olympics.
No, they don't.
Everything-
They like
No,
the
they like
constant-
cheering on their country.
They like cheering on their country and they like competition. It doesn't really. It's like why the World Cup is super popular, even in countries where soccer is not super popular. Like look at Canada. Canada sucks
Sure.
at soccer, but people get all jazzed up for the World Cup because it's countries competing against each other. That's the draw.
It's a good format, yeah.
It's not necessarily the sport. It's not necessarily the competition. It's the fact that it's happening.
I agree with all of that. I think there's something to be said about that. But nevertheless, the sporting events are cool. Like I think the yachting is neat, and I think that the
God. So
horses.
wait,
So we're back to Tim Too Rich here.
So, but again, because from my perspective,
I
it
think the only
seems-
thing in the Olympics should be just dressage and maybe the America's Cup.
Because I thought the take you were going to have was essentially it should boil back down to its original roots, which while it's a take I don't agree with, at least that's a take. So now you're like, it should be running and it should be the
Horses.
discus and horses, but also yachting.
well,
like-
sailing and boats, those are timeless as human beings.
So is breakdancing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like
Yeah, Tim hates poor people. He hates poor sports.
no.
Yeah.
I just am afraid that
What if they broke dance on, I don't know, some sort of cashmere cushion?
will breakdancing still be a thing 50 years from now,
Well,
or will it have been a fad?
Will horses? Who knows?
yeah. I mean, are horses more food or athletes? Because I would say food.
I don't know where you're eating. Perhaps this is why I don't eat at the places you eat.
I'm just thinking about the rest of the world, Tim. Horses could be very tough meat, but very delicious. Have you ever eaten horse? Because
Their hide is also very useful.
Yeah, they're products mainly.
Horses are majestic athletes.
I mean, baseball players wear them on their hands.
That's true.
So I guess in that way,
And they make super
Isn't that
sticky
mostly-
glue.
Isn't that mostly
they
cow
do.
leather?
I don't know, man. I don't know about the production of baseball gloves. I know they used to be made out of horsehide.
I think you might be right. It might be cowhide.
Maybe, who knows?
He is. Yeah. Horses. More of a utility product than an athlete, at least in my mind. There's so many different uses. Like general transportation, sure. Athlete,
Again,
bit much.
that block of cheese.
Yeah,
More-
roll it.
more of an
I'm in.
athlete.
That should definitely be in the Olympics.
I would watch that
Don't know how
every
you
single
would win.
time.
First one down
you
the
get
hill.
the
First
cheese
one down
first, yeah.
Whoever gets the cheese wins. You roll it down the fucking hill, and you have to take the tumble. You take the tumble.
You love these simple old school Olympic games. What is more time cherished than a bunch of hungry people going after a single piece of food?
And that really fits into your Tim Too Rich narrative. You can be the guy wearing the top hat
I
and
know.
monocle. Oh, here's a very low rent wheel of cheese, and I'm going to roll it down this hill. Now you now you pores over here. You line up, and the moment I drop it, you go chase it. You can eat like a king for 4 days on your
like
wheel of
Thurston.
cheese.
I
The
don't
rest of
speak
you,
like Thurston Howell the Third.
see, if more people watch Gilligan's Island, they would be up on that. See, I never have, but I know what he's talking about.
That impression sounds just like him.
Sounds like you.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Let me go to my summer house and my country estate while the poors mind the field. I don't want to touch the water that interacts with the different types of plantation that I have growing, but, the others can do that. That's fine.
I'm just going to sit down on this Sunday afternoon and watch my jumbo jets.
It's like hanging out
That's
with Tim.
fine.
Yeah,
It's a very good Tim impression.
I thought so.
All right. I think that'll do it on Cust Corner. Cust Corner 21.
Where
Let's
does the time go?
Less contentious than usual.
Well,
I made a concerted effort to try to not be as antagonistic anymore and try to see Tim's side of things and maybe have a decent discussion about it.
as long as you just, completely disregard anyone who doesn't have any money.
Yeah, it's very
pretty easy to see
pretty
his
easy to
perspective.
solve. Oh,
That is not my view. I'm an advocate for the common person,
And horses.
for the man on the street. That's why I brought.
I think that horses should have bigger living stables than people.
Wasting all this city space on people. Where's the room for horses?
Oh, I do have one final news note for you. This came out a while ago, but Cliff Kingsbury giving his team designated 15-minute and 30-minute cell phone breaks for meetings. I think that's smart coaching.
I think it's smart coaching too.
That's him knowing his
They're going to
players.
do it anyway.
Yeah.
So
Let him go check
I would
Instagram.
ban that.
What's that?
Right, coaching. I would ban cell phones from my players.
you,
during,
sir, would be
during
usurped.
work time.
Yeah, see, that's not going to work out very well for you, I don't think.
You think Bill Belichick gives people 15-minute phone breaks?
Probably not, but he's also Bill Belichick. You would just be Tim Andercust. You'd be like, you can't have your cell phone in here. That is ridiculous. Unless you're using a telegram.
Let's get back.
I don't want to hear about it.
Let's get back to next week's game plan. I've been reading the Broncos message boards. I think I have a pretty good idea of what they're going to run this week.
That's not funny.
You're laughing.
Yeah, you're laughing at it.
Laughing at how ludicrous that is.
But this kind of goes it's not even just in a football environment. Yeah, it can seem kind of silly, but it's almost like office culture at the same time. How much office culture has shifted, especially if you work in an office that has mainly people under 40 in it versus where Tim works, where everyone's it's him and a bunch of 70-year-olds.
Yeah.
Which I assume just kind of works.
It's just
people show up
access
late,
too,
people
right?
show up, they leave early, they take a whole bunch of vacation. But you go into office culture now, people are on their phones a ton.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's also if you're talking about NFL players specifically, you're literally spending half the day in your team's, in your team building just watching things on iPads anyway.
Yeah.
The access to the technology is right there. So it's kind of hard to avoid it.
Yeah, it seems like a very players coachy thing to do, but I actually think there is some sort of logic behind it.
Yeah, sure.
That if it doesn't work, that you give people 15 minutes to go fuck off on their phones as a break anyway, and they come back in and they're still on their phones. Well, then it's completely useless.
Well,
but if
yeah.
it actually does work, I think.
Yeah.
Because that is the single. Even when we worked at Fantasy in the pit, the single hardest thing to get people to do was get off their phones for a minute to listen to you tell them what to do for work.
Yeah. Again, I think the only difference here is that Kingsbury actually has come out and said these are designated phone periods, as opposed to if a coach just came out and said, I'm giving players 10 minutes every hour to have a break, they're going to use it for their phone anyway. You're just not coming out and saying and calling it a phone break. So it's really not all that revolutionary.
Yeah, I sometimes I need to have a phone break in the middle of my show with Feinberg because he's just looking at his phone and not listening to me. We're actively doing content.
Well, I mean,
And he's reading Chargers message boards.
he's probably just looking at himself in the reflection of the phone.
Doing his hair.
Yeah.
Tim, you work with a lot of older people, right?
I don't know if I would use the word older.
Well, how old is the oldest person at your office?
Oh, I don't know. I would say it's not as younger of a demographic.
How are
Are you the youngest person in your office?
No, I'm not the youngest.
Are you one of the youngest?
I don't know. I would say that maybe 10 to 15% of people are in my age bracket.
So you work in an old office then?
Yeah. So the median age at your office would be 50 something.
Probably.
You work with old people. You work with a bunch of olds. How's the like cell phone problem at people's desk there?
I see quite a few cell phones actually.
Yeah, olds love a good cell phone.
Well, they just figured it out.
Yeah, like my grandma, who's now actively better at her phone than Tim is. She has one of those real big ones, though. It's like basically an iPad.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at my phone.
You're not. You didn't even know what a hotspot was like 10 minutes ago.
I still don't know what that is.
How can you be so good at your phone? What do you do? Like, honestly, you open up like the front page of like your apps, right? What are the apps that are on your front page that didn't come with the phone? I'm curious.
The Score app.
The Score. We can do what?
If he joined the Zoom link with his phone and pressed share screen, we could see his phone.
He's not going to know how to do that.
Yeah. I mean, he can barely use his phone. He's not going to know how to do that. So tell me, you have the Score app, okay?
I have the Score app. Right now I have the Open Championship app. What else have I got here? Google. I have Twitter. And I have that snake block game.
So you have unlimited access to thousands upon thousands of games, and you've chosen as the one game you want to put on your phone the game that came with Pat's Nokia 15 years ago.
It's not the same game.
It's basically the same
There's
concept.
colors in this one.
Yeah, there is colors, and you can be a palm tree if you want to.
Yeah,
I played it for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
It was good.
I had it too.
There's a bunch of games
Yeah,
that
I
you
go
play them
through
for 2 weeks, then you
fits and
delete them
starts.
because it's just like So that's it. Those are all the apps you have on your phone.
And a couple of news apps.
So like you don't have banking on your phone.
No.
You don't have any ride sharing. You have no betting. You have no stock updates.
No.
You don't have like shared photos with people. You don't have like a Netflix or anything like that, so you can watch stuff on the go.
I watch my Netflix on my computer.
Yeah, but what if you're on the go? You don't know how to.
He's not on the go.
You don't have hotspots, so you can't watch Netflix if you're outside of your house.
Oh, here. Do you have?
I'll listen to a podcast.
Tim, do you have data?
Of course.
Okay. I honestly wasn't sure.
Do you have unlimited data?
I have like 6 gigs or something.
You have 6 gigs? I was talking to Paul about this the other day. He has 2 gigs. How many gigs do you have per month?
I have 6.
You have 6? I have 22, and I always go over it. Wow.
You're streaming and
well,
watching.
To be fair, I mostly work from home now, so I really don't run into that problem.
Yeah,
much.
but my Wi-Fi at home isn't great, so I just don't use the Wi-Fi at my house. It's
too
slow.
That happens to me sometimes.
Once you get like blessed with like great internet like we have at the office, I want that type of internet everywhere. And I find like the LTE networks, like
they're very good.
They're so fast now.
Yeah.
But like just even like I have 5 different podcast apps on my phone.
Yeah.
I just have the regular one.
What's that?
I just have the regular podcasts one.
Yeah, but you can have different ones if you want to listen to things on like Luminary.
Until like 3 or 4 years. You know what? Never mind.
No, please continue.
Like 2 or 3 years ago, I was just going on the Safari link and finding the podcast that way and just listening to it on the internet through my phone. I didn't even know the podcast thing existed.
It comes with the phone.
Yeah, but I never used it.
Wow.
So you would just to clarify, because I find sometimes if I'm about to go on a plane or something like that, I'll find it in Chrome and download it just so I have the file. You're literally keeping that tab open, because sometimes you even have to make sure your phone is like it doesn't go into lock or sleep to keep listening to that podcast. So you would sit there with the page open for an hour listening to a podcast?
You click play and then the screen would go black and you'd have that cue in the middle.
Yeah, and then you'd play it, and then
you push play.
Yeah, the cue is for QuickTime, by the way. But you would play that, but you wouldn't be able to navigate around the rest of your phone. You had to keep it open.
No, that you were just on that page.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That for years.
Yeah, he's over that. I have 3 different live streaming TV apps. I have this like one thing so I don't have to carry so many cards around with me. Like,
I have this app that also keeps my pulse. Oh, that may have already though been on the phone.
Does it work?
Do you have a health app that tracks
that's what it's called.
Diet Coke consumption? That also comes with a phone.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
So like even things like somewhere to store like all of your cards. Like I even saw it last night. Like my friend doesn't carry around his credit cards. He either just uses Apple Pay or opens up his like MasterCard app and just taps his phone where he
I
needs to
saw
tap it.
somebody do that once and I was freaked. This happened like 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. We were golfing somewhere and somebody pulled out their phone and it had an exact photo of their credit card on it. And then they put it on the tap machine and it worked and I was freaked.
How does that freak you out?
Have you never used an
You're
e-ticket?
supposed to carry the card with you. The card has the tapping quality in it. That's why it's called a credit card, because it's an actual card. The idea that you could just like load an image of it on your phone somehow and then through
It's not like you can just take a picture.
It's not like you went into photos, took a picture, and now he has your credit card. That's not how it works.
I didn't know what it was, and like their debit card was the same way. They like had an image of it, and I was like, "Oh my!"
Okay,
goodness.
I ask again because now I'm generally curious. Have you ever used an e-ticket to get into something?
What's an e-ticket?
That seems like a good place.
That's
to
a good
end.
place
That's
to stop,
That's
yep.
a fantastic place to stop this. All right, Garion, thank you for being here.
No problem. It's a pleasure as always.
Oh, of course, and always, as usual, Bottom Cat. I would like to thank him because his name actually is Tim Andercust.
Tim Andercust.
That's not my name. Thank you for listening to Top Cat Corner 21, as the people call it.
I'm great at phones. What's an e-ticket? Oh. Okay, you have.
Is that like when you go to the theater and you ask them to email you your ticket to your email, or like when you go to to get on the airplane, where they email you your ticket to your email and then you use your email to get on the plane?
You're piecing this. You're piecing this
You're
together.
doing it,
Tim.
buddy.
So I've done that. I've used I'll have it forwarded to my Gmail, and then I'll open up the link, and it'll have up like the scanny thing for getting on the plane.
I'm confused when you
and
say
they'll
forwarded to
scan my
your
phone.
Gmail as if it wasn't just sent to your Gmail initially. Where was it at first?
Well, when I say forward, I mean like when you're checking in, you enter your email address in so that they can send it to you.
Yeah, okay. You've got it. You're there.
Now, do you go through Safari to Gmail to check your Gmail, or do you have like your mail app set up?
No. I have it hooked up to my mail.
Okay. See, the first
Someone
time
did that. I asked them before I left the store when I bought my phone. I made them do that for me because I knew I was never going to figure it out on my own.
Good with phones though. Couldn't figure out the mail app.
Yeah, that tricky app where you enter the email address that you want to hook up to it. Gets me every time.
How many different emails do you have in your email?
Just that one. Just my Gmail.
Just Gmail?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have your Hotmail? TimAndercust69@hotmail.com?
I don't use Hotmail or the Yahoo. I don't use it.
Yeah, so like I'm just looking through my apps here. Like, yeah, I have one that just has like
Your points cards.
Yeah,
Sure.
all my points cards are on it. Like, so if I
don't have any points cards.
You don't have any points
We've
cards?
gone over this.
Yeah, I don't understand how you can be spending all this money so frivolously and just throwing it away. You talk about people lighting their money on fire. You're legitimately giving away free money.
I know. I should get a Shopper's Optimum card. I keep telling myself I need to get those.
You can get that on your phone. Mine is on my phone.
I know. There's no excuse except laziness.
All right, it's just like how you won't pay for things with credit cards to get the points, which still makes no sense.
Things, no, I think that's there's a lack of dignity in that.
Where's the lack of dignity come in?
Oh, I'm going to use my Visa for a $1.50 cup of coffee. No, thank you.
Just use it for every purchase and then sync it to your phone. Then it pays it off.
What's the indignity of literally like, boop? It's so fast. It's like, hey, you owe $1.72. Boop.
By the way, do you know what is far like lower culture? Carrying around change to pay for it.
Well, I just have a bunch of change in my car.
Once I just have to go out to my car and grab a couple dimes, I'll be back. But you respect me, right?
I have a specific little slot in my car where I keep all my quarters and my change.
See, you could just get rid of this problem by just using a card and tapping it. Or having that card on your phone and just carrying your phone everywhere. Which you do anyway.
Signs and wonders.
I don't even think the fact that he can figure out how to like sync up his email to mail.
Yeah,
does not lead me to believe that he should be using all these things.
No, but he's good at phones though.
Great at phones. The best.
Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. He's got the hottest takes with the highest stakes. He should be president of the United States, but it's Cust Corner, it's Cust Corner. Cust Corner, hee hee hee.